Hello, welcome to Ekidel. My name is Justice Nwoka and I am your instructor. Today, I have not come to teach you anything, but I've come to tell my story how I became a structural engineer. Now, I know that everyone have a story to tell one day, and this is 2 years now since Ekidel came into existence online, and you guys have been hearing about me, Engineer Justice and all that, and most of you don't really know my story and everything. And I think for the reason of integrity and for the sake of integrity and all that, it would be nice I share my story. Maybe my story can also help to encourage other younger engineers coming up, and those also that are also students that are finding it difficult to in this career as a civil or structural engineer. So I would like to tell my story to you now, how I became a structural engineer and what motivated me to become a structural engineer and all that. And also, I would also like to do one thing. I would like you to also use the comment section to also drop like your own story, how you become a structural engineer, or why you want to become a structural engineer, or why you became a structural engineer. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so right now, basically, I don't know where to start from, but I know that everyone can start from anywhere. So I will start by okay, let me start first my full name and my biography. Okay, basically my name is Engineer Justice Nwoka, and I am from Nigeria. South Nigeria, that's southern part of Nigeria, that is River State, Nigeria. And I am 30 years old by this year, 2024. I'm 30 years old, and my career as a structural engineer actually started from the year 2009 and all that. So that was where I developed the ambition to become a structural engineer. Basically, that was not my intention to become a structural engineer. My actual intention was to become a barrister, right? That's to study law and all that. Then that was also what my dad wanted me to study, was law. But it all started when I was in high school, grade 8. That was SS2, and then I was asked to choose where I want to belong. Is it in science or art? I went to art class. Basically, I was there for almost 2 weeks, art class. But what chased me out from art class was because of literature. I was not able to understand literature. So after my 2 weeks of choosing to be in art class, I then called my father with anger. I said, "Daddy, I am not going to be a lawyer and all that. I'm not going to go into this law profession. I want to study civil engineering. With that, I'm going into the science department. That's a science class, not that." So I picked up my bag, left the art class, and went into the science class. My dad said, "Okay, no problem. If you want that, continue. That's fine for you if you have passion for that." And I went to science class, and everything was easy. For the first 1 week, I was able to understand physics, mathematics, further maths, and TD. That's technical drawing. Everything was nice, and basically, I'm the kind of person that I love reality. You understand? I like reality, like to see things in real life. I don't like fictions and all that. So anything I'm doing, I would like to make sure I understand it to the lowest end. Okay, so that's how I like things to be. Okay, so with that, I then started science, and I was able to understand physics very well. I was able to understand mathematics, further maths, and technical drawing. I didn't like chemistry because chemistry is all about chemical mixing. I don't like mixing of that, and biology too. I don't like biology and all that. So, but knowing that I needed 5 credit course to be able to finish up my West African examination, examination and all that. So I had to just put an eye on biology and on chemistry. And after the examination, I have to dump chemistry and biology, and I picked up the other courses which would aid me to be able to understand structural engineering very well, and that is mathematics, further maths, technical drawing, physics, and geography. So I picked up these 5 courses, and I make sure I learned them very well. And when I entered school and all that, it was easier for me to understand from my first year in my university. And all that, it was easy for me to understand, and I started seeing trusses and all that. Well, everything was nice from the first year. Yeah, my first year CGPA was 3.78. Yeah, 3.78 out of 4.0. Yeah. Then that was nice. At my year 2, everything was nice. I was able to understand everything. And on my year 3 in the university, I was sent for 1 year internship. That's they call it industrial training. Yeah, so during my industrial training on my year 3, before my industrial training, I was able to understand how to design reinforced concrete. But the mistake was that I was reading, because I learned on my own, I was reading Indian code of practice, because the textbook I was using then was written by an Indian. That was I think Kumar. Yeah, about Kumar. Yeah, something Kumar. Yeah. So I understood Indian standard and all that, knowing that I'm from Africa. Now I'm using Indian standard, because I never knew that was an Indian standard code I was using and all that. So it was during my IT, I met the company where I did my IT. That was an Indian. That was 2012. An Indian company and all that. And the man, when he saw that I basically understand structural analysis and design, but the only thing is that I was conflicting myself with code, because as at then I knew BS code and Indian code, so I was a bit conflict and all that, like conflicting the both together. So the man told me, Justice, go home and remove everything from your head and come back after 1 week, and then we will begin afresh. I said, how? I said, okay, that's fine. So I went home, and after 1 week I came back. He said, tear all the books you have written, you have all the notes you have taken down, tear them off, and then come back afresh. So I went home. I was able to tear away like I destroyed all my jotters and everything, and then I came back after 1 week to him. He then set up in the office. He bought a whiteboard and a marker, and then he was teaching me afresh structural analysis and design. Yeah, that's my boss. My boss name is Engineer Ajin Erekosima. Although I have different bosses, because basically if you want to grow in this profession, you must have to have different boss for it to have vast knowledge. Because maybe a boss that you meet for the first time can only know one particular stuff, understand, and he doesn't know how to design building with SenseMix. Okay, so if you want to advance more, you have to go and look for another person that can be able to design building with SenseMix structures, and so SenseMix load. Yeah. So I have different bosses, but that was my first boss, and his name is Engineer Ajin Erekosima, also from Nigeria and all that, but he's schooled in UK, had his masters in Holland, Australia, had his PhD in Germany and everything. So he had vast experience. So that was basically where I learned 85% of what I know today. So the man taught me from first principles, and the reason why I love the man was that the chairman of BS Code was the man that taught my boss when he went for his third masters in Holland. So he taught my boss. That was some years ago in 19th century thereabouts. So my boss was able to transmit at least 50% of what the man transmitted to him to me, and he believed in first principles and all that, and that was where I learned many things from him. I learned manual design from him. I learned how to design a bridge from him. As at then, that was my IT time. Bridge design, he taught me from first principle. He also taught me steel design from first principle and reinforced concrete building design from first principle. That's a manual. And also he also taught me seismic designs, beam, many designs, beam on elastic foundations and all that. It wasn't really easy because as at then I was still a teenage. Yeah, I was still, that was my late teenage. That was around 18 to 19 years. Yes, that was when I did my IT. 18 to 19 years thereabout. No, 18. Look, so 19 to 20 years. Yeah, correct. That was when I did my IT. So I did my IT 19 years to 20 years and all that. And then after my IT, I was granted in even before I finished my IT. When design jobs comes, like project comes, the man gives me to perform the structural analysis of that project manually. So I have to use the best way he taught me was to use Hardy-Cross moment of distribution and all that. So that was what I used to analyze projects. But there are some projects that we will have to employ slope detection method and all that. So we did that, and I was able to analyze, and then he designs. And before the end of my IT, he now gave me the chance to be designing, analyze, and also design. So I was doing the two, and then he checks and he corrects me on all that. So later, before the end of my IT tours, November, December, he saw that I was good. Then he now used 1 month to now taught me programming. He said, Justice, if you want to excel in this profession, you must learn programming. Now, the reason why he said that, the reason why he's going to teach me programming is for me to be able to back up my brain in computer. Because I must tell you that the best thing you can do in your life is to be a programmer, and also why you are a structural engineer. Now, knowing that it's not every time you have to take your pen and paper and begin to write, all right, and begin to calculate. Okay, there are some projects that will come that will be similar to what you have done before, and knowing that slope detection method or Hardy-Cross moment of distribution is in one pattern. So if maybe you have a four span and all that, if you have a project or a software you have already coded for or designed for, once you get that project, all you just need to change the load and change the length of the span and all that, and then you get your results. So he taught me how to code. So I learned programming from him as at then and all that. So when I was done with my IT, that was my industrial training and all that, he asked me that I can now go, that he have seen that I'm good and all that. Although, yeah, I believe then that I was good, because I saw that even when I took back the textbook that I was reading those days, I was able to find some mistakes in those textbooks, which I wrote to them, which I wrote to the man, that was Kuma, and for it to edit on his next edition and all that. So now when I came out, that was in 2013, I came back after my IT, and I was back to school to spend additional 2 years in school and all that. So when I came out and all that, I saw that I only know manual design, and it was a little bit stressful when you are designing for a project, like let me say for a building, and let me say you're designing for a 10-story building manually. You should know what I'm talking about. It takes time a lot to design that. So I saw that there was time, it was needed for me to know software, right? So because basically my boss doesn't believe in softwares, he believes in manual design. So when I left him, I now knew that, okay, let me go and learn softwares. The first software I learned was Orion CAC. Then I learned Start Pro. I learned Procon. I learned Fast Track, many other softwares and all that. I've used many softwares, and so now the person that taught me software is still a Nigerian, is my boss. That is Engineer Taiwo Ogbe. Yeah, I really love him. I really love him so much. Now he taught me. He is basically the resident structural engineer in charge of the world's biggest church auditorium. That is Salvation Ministry Church Auditorium. You can check that out on Google. The world's biggest church auditorium is Salvation Ministry Church. So he is the resident structural engineer that designed the church building, and the software he used to design that building is Orion Software. That's basically the same company that produced Proto Structure. So he taught me. So because of that, I had to spend additional. I have to write to my school that I don't want to resume school after my IT. I want to have additional 1 year at home, that to learn more things. And luckily enough, my school granted me that offer. So I spent additional 1 year, because I know that basically if you are out from school, it will be hard for you to learn any software or anything you want to learn, because as at that time you will be able to you will be working in a company, and most times when you're working in a company, it's hard for you to learn because the company wants you to deliver and all that. And also when you're out from school, you will be wanting to chase for money, and all that. Everyone wants money. So I needed that. It is now that I'm still in school, I need to learn everything I want to learn. And since you're a student, everybody want to teach you and all that. People don't like to share knowledge when you are out from school, because they know that you are now competing with them in the same workforce. So I had that knowledge, and I said, okay, I have to spend additional 1 year again. That's because I want to learn software now. So I prayed about that, and luckily enough, God brought me to the person, which my boss, engineer Taiwo Obe, who is the current structure and resident structural engineer in the world biggest church in the world, that's Salvation Ministry. So when I met him, he interviewed me, and it was very fun actually, because as at then I was very grounded in structural analysis and design manually. So while he was interviewing me and that, he saw that I was sound in structural design and analysis manually. As at then, he was actually performing a model on the software. So I was able to look at his screen, and I was able to detect some errors about what he was doing. So with that, he told me, Justice, interview has ended, go and sit down. I see that you are very sound. Now you can see that let me just use the quote, the word he said. He said, the person I am interviewing is now teaching me already. So basically he said, go and sit down, and then you start work. Okay. Now, knowing that he knows that I don't know software, but he knows that I'm very good in structural analysis and design manually. So he had other boys where that he was also training. So what he now focused on me, because he saw that I would be able to grab very fast, and luckily enough, I was able to grab the software in less than 2 months. Yeah, I began my training with him in January. As at March, I was already using the software Start Pro, which is also Orion Software, which is almost the same like Proto Structure, because they're the same company. I was already using the software by March to design buildings for him and all that. And in less than 6 months, I was already grounded in the software, and I was the one that is almost doing every design for him and all that. While he was busy focusing on the church auditorium building, I was busy doing other design jobs, like personal jobs for him. It's called PP actually, personal project for him. So because of that, because I was one doing all the designs for him, and he was checking, I was very grounded on the software Orion CAC and all that. So before the end of my 1 year with him, he taught me still design also using Start Pro software. And then I also met during that same 1 year, I met another boss, engineer Charles Kennedy, the man that designed the River State Stadium, the River State football stadium at Iguta. Yeah, Iguta. So at Iguta, that's in River State. He designed the River State Stadium, the steel roof design. So I was able to meet him. So he taught me Start Pro software in that Start Pro software, using that project also as a reference and all that. So I was able to also join him on the steel roof supervision, because that was during that period they were also doing the construction of that project. That was the time of Rotimi Amechi as the governor of River State. Yeah, maybe if you're not in Nigeria, maybe you can Google that and see that. Okay, so basically in less than 2 years, I already have 3 bosses. One that taught me manual design and analysis, and Taiwo that taught me concrete design using Orion CSC software, which is also product structure, and then Start Pro, Engineer Charles Kennedy that taught me Start Pro, which is the steel design and all that. And then after the 1 year, I was back to school and all that. So when I was back to school, that was in my year 4. Yeah, that was my 4th year in the university. I've already designed more than 100 buildings. Yeah, because my boss, that was used to have projects a lot. So when I was back from school, most of I already got some clients because I did my second IT. That's my second training internship in the world biggest church in the world. That's the construction, and you should know that that's a massive project work. So there was a lot of people there. So when they know that I was good, they started giving me, even when I left the place of my internship, I was still receiving calls and all that. So I was able to design in 2014, no 13, yeah 13, 14. I was able to design more than 80 buildings personally on my own as my own personal projects. Okay, 80 buildings, yeah. And that was the first time I made 1 million. Yeah, that was in 2013 when I was still in year 4. I made 1 million. I made 1.8 million. Yeah, 2013 and all that. And that was the first time I was happy actually. I said, wow, I'm a student and I made over 1 million. That's nice. So that was actually how I began to design structures. Then when we came back, Engineer Charles Kennedy was also our lecturer. That's the boss that trained me on steel design Start Pro. He was our course lecturer in CADing. So when he saw that I was good in concrete design and then he taught me steel design, he then handed over to me. There are some days he will not be coming to lecture us, so he would tell me, Justice, go and teach your colleagues this software, teach them this and this. So I'll come and then teach my colleagues. That was where I got the experience on how to simplify things to the lowest term, to a layman understanding. So since I was teaching, I was the one teaching my students. Whenever we have that course to take, he would just call me, Justice, go and take them and all that, and give me attendance of it. So I'll just come and then take them, and knowing that, so that was where I learned how to train people on how to design, or like train people actually. So I trained them manually and then now relate it down to the software. So that was where I was able to learn how to relate manual and design, like to train it for anyone to understand. Okay, that's why you can see that most of our videos here on Ekidel, even if you're a student, you'll be able to understand what to do. That's because I cannot use it. I cannot give you a value without you telling you the first principle on how that value was generated. And if you watch most of our videos here, even the domain can be able to understand, because I make sure I don't really put in mind that I'm training professionals. I put in mind that I'm training students, like people that don't even understand what they're doing, all right, that are still finding it difficult to understand. Because I know that during my years of practice, or during my years of learning, I had difficulties in understanding myself. Okay, so that was where I learned how to train people. So I was able to train my colleagues, not colleagues, my classmates then in school. And when the school saw that I was good in training, in taking the course CAD, when I was done with school in 2014, I left, and after my graduation, the school now called me back to train part-time students in structural design. So I spent my 1 year, while I was doing my 1 year service, that's NYSC, National Youth Service in Nigeria. The school now called me to come and train part-time students. So I trained the part-time students for 1 year, and that was where I wrote my first textbook. That was a textbook in structural design, and also in AutoCAD, that's in CADing. Yeah. So I was able to sell the textbook to the student, that's the part-time student and all that, and that was where I made my first 5 million. Yeah, that was the year I finished school. That's my year of graduation. I made my first 5 million. Yeah, and I was happy for that. Okay, so basically then from there I started, when I was done with that, I saw that being in the, if I still continue teaching, I will end up teaching all the rest of my life, and that's not really what I want to do. I want to explore other sectors like oil and gas, construction firm and all that. So I left. I told them that I'm not going to take up the offer again in 2015. So I now came into the industry. The first company I worked for was a construction company in Nigeria, MCC. I left and I worked with China Civil, and then I left again. I worked with China Civil. I left LCC company in Nigeria again, and then I worked with Concord Engineering. That was a remote job in Canada, and then from there I started. Although then I have not designed any projects internationally. I was just doing when I say I work with Canada, I was doing a card drawing for them. Card drawing for them. Why in Nigeria? Why I was working with China Civil in Nigeria, LCC and MCC. I was doing designs for them for their concrete designs and all that, building design. Yeah. So later, after 2016, I said, okay, it is time for me to set up my own firm. Yeah, that's because I have already gotten over 70 clients as at then. Yeah, as at then, 70 clients in Nigeria as at then. So there is no week I don't get more than 5 projects like designs, to like do for clients. So I've been running designs, not that. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So that was how I started that. And 2016 I started my own company and all that. Now the company basically was called Stonebridge. So the company was called Stonebridge, though the Stonebridge actually was a design firm. That was what I set up, is a design firm. And then from there, 2016, I had two workers working with me, 2 employees working with me and all that. And then I taught them programming, and then from there I was able to develop the Stonebridge template. Yeah, I know, like I said again, based on integrity, I'll have to say everything I need to know. I'm the CEO of Stonebridge company. So it was from there we developed Stonebridge templates. So knowing that this software product structure, CAC Orion, after you're designing and all that, it takes you additional time to perform your structural detailing, and it takes time a lot to make sure everything appears well. So with that, I spent 2016 and partly 2017 to develop the template you guys are using now, Stonebridge template. So when I developed that, I sent it to Concord Engineering Canada for review, because I had some boss then for review. They reviewed that, and then they told me what to add, and then I made that, added some things on that. And then the first project we used it to work on was the same project from Concord Engineering, and we saw that it was perfect. Basically, after designing in product structure or in Orion software or Start Pro, we spent additional like 7 to 10 days to now optimize the structural drawings and all that. So it takes time a lot, but with the help of Stonebridge templates, we saw that it takes us only 5 hours to be able to perform structural detailing using that template. So we then started optimizing this template every year to add new things. Now the reason why, we then saw also that alongside where I was training some students 2017, I saw that most of them don't even know how to arrange structural drawing. They don't know which one to come first, that will come first, you know, because there are some sequence you have to follow when arranging structural drawing. So most people don't know the sequence. So with that, that's okay. It's okay, that's fine. So to be able to help the world, because basically when you pick a field, either doctor, engineering, anything at all, the purpose of that is to use it to help the world, to make the world easy. All right, because we are trying to make the world an easy place for everyone to live. Okay, so it's okay. Let me use this Stonebridge template to be able to help other people also. Basically, we were using it only for our company Stonebridge template. Now that for our company works. Now that it was not yet in public, so I was using it for only any jobs we have in our company Stonebridge, and then for the company we are working with, which is the Concord Engineering Canada. So we use this only for them. Okay, but later in 2021, I said no, it is time for us to go to come online, to be able to teach wider people. Because basically before, we just teach people that comes to our office every year, 5 persons, 2 persons, and that. I say no, it is time for me to help younger engineers, not only around my company Stonebridge or I know that. It is time we go outward, time we go outside the world, outside Nigeria, outside Africa, and the only way for us to reach that is to have a YouTube channel. Okay, so that was how we now created a channel. And before then, Ekidel came into existence. Ekidel was basically a part of Stonebridge company that only handles training. Okay, so Ekidel basically handles training and all that. Then in 2017, Ekidel came as its I made Ekidel to be on its own as a company. So Ekidel also started picking handling design jobs, contract jobs, construction jobs and all that. Then we started doing that, and then in 2021 we brought Ekidel into online and all that. So that's how you saw Ekidel being online. Okay, so I had my first company in 2016. That was when I was 20. I'm 30 years now at 2024. 2014 should be 2016 should be thereabouts. Let me just take that out. Okay, I think that was when I was around 25 years old. 25 years old. So my first company was 25 years old. That was Stonebridge. Then in 2017 ending, Ekidel was born. Ekidel was born. But in 2021, Ekidel became a popular, like we came online, and that was 27 years old. So I would say that Ekidel basically came into existence fully as its own design firm in 2021. That's when I was 27 years old. 27 years old. So in that, so basically this is actually how my design career came into existence. Now, the first design job I designed internationally, that was what pushed me out from local engineer. When you are designing for only your countries, you are a local engineer, just take that. But when you now decide designing for other countries, you're in your country designing for other projects, going for supervisions in other countries, then you now become an expatriate. So I did my first expatriate job, that was international design in Jamaica. That was when I designed for a 13-story building, 12-story building, 10-story building, and 8-story building, 5-story building, and 6-story building in just one project. Because it was basically like a block, like a building blocks. So all this project I mentioned now was in that project, right? So that was where I designed my first international project, was in Jamaica. So which I also went for for each supervision twice. First was for a project meeting when we want to finalize for the design phase. Then the second was when we are doing for the foundation. I went for the supervision of that. So that was how I got my first international job in that. And then from there was a breakthrough from Ekidel. So from Ekidel, we started designing international projects. We designed our first project in Canada. That was in 2022. We designed our first project in Canada, and that year we were able to design 10 projects in Canada with 4 different clients. And then we moved to Estonia. We designed some projects in Estonia in 2023. 2023 actually was a breakthrough because we designed projects in Estonia, Germany, we designed in France, we designed in Zambia, Kenya, Ghana, and Australia. Yeah. Now, the reason why we were able to design most of these projects is because I learned different codes. I can use BS code, I can use Eurocode, and I can use ACI code, which is American code. Now, what I would advise you younger engineers to do is that now you are still learning. Don't just learn only one code, learn different codes, and you learn BS code, learn American code, and learn Eurocode. Now you can skip BS code and learn American code and Eurocode. The reason why I said you should skip BS code is because in April 1st, 2010, BS code became obsolete to be used for any structural design. Eurocode came to supersede BS code, and I don't know if you have data that was given to us structural engineers in 2010 that BS code is now obsolete, that the new code to be used is Eurocode. Now, the reason why I would like you to learn Eurocode is because Eurocode is basically very vast. The reason why Eurocode is very unique and why you must adopt Eurocode if you want to be an international engineer is because of Eurocode has something called country annex. Now, what this country annex is all about is that country annex in Eurocode, for example, if I'm in Nigeria right now and I want to design for a client in Germany, knowing that Germany is also a European country, what I'll just do is to go to Germany, is to go and pick up Eurocode Germany country annex in Eurocode. Now, in that country, Germany country annex in Eurocode, you will be able to see every design conditions, design loads, how their weather condition is, and everything that you will need to design for that country. You have that. Now, the reason why Eurocode came with country annex is to break the barrier of an engineer not being able to design for other countries within the nations. Okay, so Eurocode annex break that barrier, so you can be in Canada as long as you can use Eurocode. What you do is to go and pick up the country annex either in Italy, in Germany, in Belgium. They all have country annex. So you pick the country annex and then use that to design for. You use that and then apply in Eurocode, and then you will be able to design that project. Now, with the help of country annex. Now, the reason why I love product structure is because I have used many software, as I told before. I've used several design softwares. Now, the reason why I love product structure is because product structure is very unique. Is one of the most simple, advanced software, and it also helps to reduce workload for structural engineers. For example, no software actually generates structural drawings neat and perfect as product does. Although there is something that is called Quick Civil, that's Civil Soft. Although that is not really popular, and they don't update that software that much. That one also provides drawing very well, but portal structure is very, very good. Now, the reason why I say it's good is because with product structure, you can be able to design for any countries in Europe. For example, you can get a contract in Germany now, or in Portugal. Yeah, I designed a 15-story building in Portugal, and when I was done with that, the client requested that I translate all the languages for the report and for the drawing into Portugal language. Now, if you're using any other design software, it will be hard for you to do that. But with portal structure, you can design with English and everything with English, or with language you can understand. And when you're done with your design, when you're trying to generate the reports and the drawings, what you will do is to go to the settings and change the setting of that particular project and say, generate the report for me in Portugal language, or generate for me and also generate all the drawings in Portugal language. And you see that the software will give you all the drawings, all the reports in the language you have chosen, and it supports several languages and all that, which I have done in some of my videos. I've shown you guys how to change languages after you've done the design. You can change the language of the reports and all that. So basically, you can see how I translated from my high school down my level and how I got my experience in structural engineering, how I am today. Then after my I finished school, I then further into masters. I have 2 masters currently, which I'm going for my 3rd masters in Europe, Luxembourg, and all that. And then I'm going to study I'm going for masters in mega structures and substantial engineering. Now, the reason why I am going for that is because I saw that basically right now every client wants to economize money and all that. So that's the reason for substantial engineering. So I'm going for substantial engineering, how to use materials that are cheaper but still have structural integrity and that to design for a structure. So I'm going for mega structures and substantial engineering, which I'm going to do for the next 2 years. And when I'm done with that, I'm going for my 4th masters in China. The reason why I'm going for do my masters in China is because I want to meet with Chinese and then get some get how to make some materials, lightweight materials that will still be structurally okay. Because basically the cost of construction generally in the world right now is very high, and the world at large is going through inflation and all that. So if you are able to discover or do a research on, let me say, to like as you can see, basically most people are trying to use bamboo as for a reinforcement, but the research is still going on. It has not yet been perfected, but it's still going on. All right, so you can see, so with that, if that is being achieved, you can see that the cost of spending much in reinforcement will be lesser in reinforced concrete structures. Okay, so that you can see that's the reason why most people go for studies. Okay, I went for studies in Holland for coastal engineering. When I studied coastal engineering, because there was a project I had, I missed the project because I don't have an idea to design coastal structures. Okay, because the way you design for structures which are onshore is different from the way you design for structures in offshore. Okay, and also it's different from the way you design for a structure around the coastal region. Okay, so I went to Holland to study coastal engineering, and with that, after 1 year of that, I was able to design, I think, 4 projects. Yeah, around the coastal area, because basically when you're designing for structures in coastal area, you have to be careful. If you don't have the idea, I'll advise go and learn it. Don't use the idea of reinforced concrete structure to go and design for a structure around the coastal region. That's because when there is a high tide in the river or in the ocean, I know that, and when the wave goes very high, I know that, knowing that if you have a wind speed of 35 meter per second on the onshore, let me say around the country, around the coastal area, the wind speed will be doubled or even tripled. That's because when there is a high tide and there is wave, the wind speed there becomes very high. And not only that, the concrete the concrete cover thickness, concrete cover you like use in onshore is different from the concrete cover you will use around the coastal region. For example, if the water is a saline water, then you will have to increase your concrete thickness very well. That's because if you use a lesser concrete thickness, when there is a high tide and there is wave, knowing that the air around the coastal area is always moist, so when there is your concrete structure will be moist at all the time, and since it's moist, it will cause moisture, and when this moisture penetrates into the concrete and all that and touches your reinforcement, what happens is that you will see that because that moisture carries air and all that, it will begin to rust the reinforcement very fast. That's because that air or that moisture has a salinity in it, so it will cause corrosion to your reinforcement very fast and all that. So many things you consider when you are designing for structures around the coastal region. Okay, basically this is not a course for coastal engineering and all that, but know that structural engineering generally is very broad, it's very wide. Structural engineering, as a structural engineer, you are basically fitting in every areas, in every sectors in the world. Actually, we are fitting everywhere. So if you want to advance in area, you have to go for the course. All right, we have structural engineers that also analyzes planes, aeroplanes, and all that. We also have structural engineers that also analyzes ships. Yeah, we also have structural engineers that also analyzes cars. Yeah, you can use AMSIS, abacus, and all that for the stretch analysis. Yeah, so basically structural engineering is very, very broad, but I would like you to choose the one you want to focus on, and then focus on that. Later you can then proceed to go and have courses. Okay, so as long as you are living in structural engineering, I would advise you to be going for courses. After some time, after like 1 or 2 years, go for a course. All right, so that's how you gain knowledge. That's how you gain experience. All right, now when it comes to experience in structural engineering, all right, experience, you will have more experience when you do some taxing projects. All right, for example, the kind of experience you will have if you are only designing for only 1-story building will be different when you design for a 15-story building, knowing that at 15-story building you will consider wind load and other effects of what lateral movement and all that, compared to when you're designing for just 1-story building. You won't consider much things. So when you do some taxing projects, you will have more experience. Now, knowing that Ekidel is built, how I built Ekidel, or my idea for Ekidel is to be able to use it to train younger engineers, to help younger engineers, and also to help some engineers around the world and all that. So with that, we want to embark on what they call Ekidel project review. Now, what that will be is that, although I will throw more light later about that, that's what we want to embark on. Now that will help younger engineers to have experience and all that. It also help professional engineers also who doesn't have much experience in some particular areas of structural engineering to also have experience and all that. So basically, I think I have said up to 15 minutes now and all that. Along the time, I will also tell more of my stories about structural engineering and all that. But basically, Ekidel have 10 staffs, 10 employees working currently in Ekidel, and we have one of our employees is from Kenya, another one is from Zambia, then we have in Cameroon and Ghana, and then the rest 5 is from Nigeria. Okay, so currently Ekidel is an international company and all that. We have designed most projects, we have designed more projects internationally than in our country, Nigeria, and all that. And then we have trained many professional engineers, we have trained many engineers, students using our Ekidel mentorship training. So I would advise that, yeah, most of our videos here are very good for everyone. We have been having a thank you message from people around the world that our videos are very explanatory, very simple to understand, and we have done much works on our videos here on YouTube. But I would advise, if you have time, enroll for our Ekidel mentorship training. What you gain there will be different from what you watch here on our channel. Most people say that our Ekidel mentorship training is very expensive and all that. Now, the reason why it's not really cheap is because, and basically I don't see why people say it's expensive. Our training is less than $400, and we train you for 6 weeks. Basically, our Ekidel mentorship is for a lifetime, because after your training, when you have passed through our training in Ekidel mentorship, if you have any projects you're working on later, you can still reach us up and we will guide you on that free of charge. All right, we'll guide you and then put you through on how to do that. Okay, so that's why I say it's a lifetime. I know that. Okay, now most of our staffs that we have currently in Ekidel pass through Ekidel mentorship. I know that, and we also have scholarships that we have awarded to most students around the world. I know that. So basically, our mission on Ekidel is to help younger engineers. I know that. Now, I was able to I'm able to become the CEO of Stonebridge company and Ekidel company at this early age, at 30 years old. Not really because I was the best in my class. No, I was the second best in my class. Yeah, we had the overall best. So then when I was in school, yeah. But the reason I was able to do that was because I never wasted any time in life. Yeah, at every year I have something I'm meant to achieve. So I didn't waste any year of my life. Now, the reason why I said I didn't waste any year of my life is, as I can see, I told you the history. You can see that every year I make sure I achieve something. You know, so every year of my life I make sure I achieve something. For this year already, I already have a goal to achieve, which is my third masters. I know that. From by next year, I'll be having my fourth masters, and then 2026 I'm going for my PhD. Yeah, from PhD, and I'll begin to go for other courses. Okay. Now, then we also have dreams to advance Ekidel, which I will not say here, but in the nearest future, in less than 2 years, you will see how Ekidel will be brought, all right, and how it will be easier for people to understand structural engineering. Like, let me say structural engineering as a whole, because basically I know what I suffered when I was learning structural engineering. I know that, so I took it as a decision to make structural engineering very, very easy, simple for anyone to understand. And because I was able to design over 100 buildings while I was still in school. That's my fourth year in school. I was able to design 100 buildings which are standing to date and which passed through checks by many bodies of engineering. And since I was able to do that, I was able to make millions when I was in school. So I saw that it would be nice for me to also teach younger engineers, basically students. I can see I focus more on students. And if you see what we do here on Ekidel, we can see that even a student from year 1 or from year 2 in the university can be able to design structures after watching our videos and after passing through our mentorship training. That's because we expose everything, we give out everything as it is from first principle. Now, Ekidel mentorship, basically, you can see how I'm saying more of that. I'll advise you to enroll for that if you want to be a good structural engineer. Okay, get yourself enrolled for Ekidel mentorship. Now, we made it easier for people to make payments. You can pay in different forms and methods on that, and just for it to be easier for everyone, just to achieve our dream to help young engineers, we made our payment. You can make payments up to 3 times installments. Okay, that's fine. So basically, that's my story about how I became a structural engineer, and how it's going currently in my life as a structural engineer. Okay, basically, I'm not good at telling stories and all that. Maybe if I didn't tell it well, sorry for that, but that's the best I can tell for now. But later, if I find any other way to tell my story, I can do that. Okay, that's fine. And then most people say I talk very fast. Well, that's how basically I talk and all that. I don't know, basically, but I love you guys. I love younger engineers a lot. I love seeing people. I love seeing younger engineers, students, people that don't even know their way and right in social engineer, and after some time, they just pick up from nowhere. I love doing that. I love seeing them and all that, and I've seen younger engineers, people that don't even know anything about engineering, but they find themselves in studying civil engineering or structural engineering and all that, but later they don't even have a clue about that. But when they pass through our training in Ekidel mentorship, they were so happy, yeah, because of what they learned. And basically, when you are done with our Ekidel mentorship training, we give you some projects to design. For example, we get projects in weekly basis here on Ekidel. So we give you to do the design and then we check, because basically we know that you can only be a good engineer when you design a live project. That's why you can see here on Ekidel, we use live project design to teach you guys here on Ekidel, because we know that it is only when we use a live project you will be able to understand what we are doing here on Ekidel. So you'll be able to understand structural design. We don't believe in using like any building plan that is not a real life to design, because you that is watching, you will not have confidence on that. But when you see that we are using real life example, real life building to teach you, you will see that you'll be able to have the confidence to flow with the training. Okay, so that's why I told everybody, I told my instructors that make sure you use a real life project to make videos if you're making videos on Ekidel, or also while you're training while you're training students on our mentorship. Make sure you use live designs, live building design to do that. Okay, so that's why you can see that they cope very fast, and that's why also you can see that you are able to understand our video very fast and also begin to design buildings. That's because we use live projects. Okay, so now one thing I want to advise professional engineers out there, and also you that's watching my video right now, when you are good, when you know that you are good in design or structure, don't hide knowledge. Most people tend to hide knowledge a lot when it comes to design. I don't know why they hide knowledge actually, but I believe they believe they don't want competition. But it's not good to hide knowledge. give out the knowledge. The world is very big. We have over 7 billion people in the world. So give out the knowledge. Your client will come. Nobody is competing with you. Give out the knowledge out there. Don't hide knowledge. The reason why most structure collapse is because most people tends to hide knowledge. So the person that designed that building that collapsed doesn't have enough knowledge to design that. But if you were able to transmit the knowledge, you see that he would have gotten the knowledge to design that. Now, I will do a video about how or what is the causes of building collapse. Right? I will do a video on that and tell you the causes, the major causes of building collapse, because most times that building collapse, most people see it as a structural failure. Most times it is not from the structural design, it is not a structural failure, but I'll tell you on that. Let me say on my next video that I'll be coming live here with you, I will tell you the reason why there is a structural failure and what happens, or the reasons why failure happens in structures. And I'll also tell you what you're meant to look out for when you're designing for any structures. Okay, now also I will be teaching on bridge design very soon, which, as you can see here, we have a bridge design here. I know that I'll be showing you on bridge design very soon. I know that. Okay, so thank you so much and God bless you. So I have told you my story right now, how I became a structural engineer and what led me to do that. And also I would like to know also what made you choose the profession as a structural engineer on the comment section. Okay, now know that Ekidel loves you, and now that you have known me very well, that I'm the CEO of Stonebridge company and also the CEO of Ekidel company. Now that you know me very well, and I believe this is a good way for us to start. Okay, this is a new year and it's nice to be playing to you guys. But know that Ekidel loves you, Stonebridge loves you, and I love you so much. I love you so much. Bye then. Bye for now. We love you. Bye.